When the world is just too much, turn it off and turn on positive, encouraging K-Love.
I'm gonna praise.
World off. K-Love on.
K-Love is sunshine for my soul.
I love K-Love.
Listen now on your radio, online, or on the free K-Love app.
K-Love makes me feel so good.
Positive, encouraging K-Love.
Thank you for listening to The History of the Papacy. I'm your host, Steve. If you like listening to The History of the Papacy, you can watch it too. The History of the Papacy in 10 Minutes are mini documentaries that are available on YouTube, and they're just little tastes of papal and church history, basically a sidetrack episode in short form on YouTube. But anyways, Patreon is back. We're back on Patreon. There's a bunch of exciting things coming up with Patreon, but I should say that there's 4 tiers. Antioch, Alexandria, Constantinople, and Rome, which represent the traditional sees of Christianity and the early church. The biggest thing for you is inclusion in the group. You will be a member of the History of the Papacy Diptychs, which means you'll be commemorated in the beginning of episodes and in YouTube videos. So join early so your name's higher on that list. And to commemorate the History of the Papacy Diptychs, we have Roberto, Joran, William, Brian, Jeffrey, Christina, and John at the Alexandria level. We have Dapo, Paul, Justin, and Lana, all of whom are magnificent at Constantinople and achieving that ultimate power and prestige, that of the See of Rome. We have Peter the Great. We're heading into the back half of the prophets here, so if you have questions, get those in, because we will be having another question and answer episode coming up, and maybe a little bit of other special guests too, so definitely stay tuned. Now, the stars of today's episode are Zephaniah and Habakkuk. Both of these prophets bring up some interesting and difficult and some technical issues, you might say, on Old Testament theology and philosophy, so I think you'll definitely enjoy them today. And I just want to thank everyone for listening. I hope that you like the teaser episodes that I've been releasing. I'd love to hear your feedback on those on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Definitely send in emails to my email address, steve@a2zhistorypage.com. Subscribe to The History of the Papacy and Garry's show while you're at it. You can find more in the show notes. And with that, I will see you next time. Here we go again. Garry of the History in the Bible podcast, and I, humbly, Steve Guerra of the History of the Papacy podcast. Garry and Steve, the minor prophets of podcasting, bring you our latest installment of our series on the 12 minor prophets of the Old Testament. We want to show you that these minor prophets belong in the major leagues. Garry, how are you today?
I'm fine. Still alive. That's better than some people can say.
That goes a long way these days.
It does, doesn't it?
Now, we're well into this series. We're kind of on the back half of it, depending on how many add-ons we decide to do. Yeah. But you can listen to them in order or not. We're not your parents, so it's up to you. And they make no sense in our order, any other than any other order. So you could listen in any order you want.
Yeah.
And if you like these collaborative episodes, Garry and I have nearly an entire podcast in and of itself worth of collaborations for your enjoyment. I even found another book that we could do. We visited quite some time ago, James the Just. And I found another book about the family of Jesus. That one might be needing to get dusted off again at some point.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
But that's a couple of prophets away at least.
Yeah.
But today we're taking on two prophets with very interesting messages, Zephaniah and Habakkuk.
And I'm going to persist in calling him Habakkuk, which is the Hebrew pronunciation, because I just find it easier to say.
And I might wind up saying Habakkuk, so we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah.
Now, Garry, tell us just a really short, what's your 2-sentence word on these two prophets before we really dig into what they're all about?
Okay, in our series, these are the last two prophets from the southern kingdom of Judah. They are both writing round about, say, 640 to 590, that sort of time. And they are both responding to the instability arising from the collapse of the Assyrian Empire, which had destroyed the northern kingdom of Israel quite a while before. And they are responding to the looming threat of the growing power of Babylon, which is hammering away at Assyria. So that's basically the historical situation. Earlier prophet is Zephaniah, which in Hebrew apparently is Zephaniah, which means God has treasured. And in Greek, it is Sophonias, is that right?
I think that's probably pretty close. So he's another one where we just slap an S on the end of his name, and you've got the Septuagint version.
Yeah.
Which I think we have another episode about that in this series.
Oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do. Now, the book itself says that Zephaniah was ranting during the reign of Josiah, who was one of the last kings of Judah. Josiah reigned for an unusually long time, maybe 30 years. He started off as a teenager, so he must have been gone round about by, say, the age of 50. And Josiah is most famous for a series of religious reforms, as recounted in the books of Kings and Chronicles. Basically, Josiah, in the middle of his reign, found that the Assyrian Empire was collapsing. It was being hammered by Babylon and its various allies. So for the first time in a long time, the tiny little kingdom of Judah found itself not under imperial pressure, and it could do pretty much as it wished. So he went on a series of religious reforms which basically established monotheism in the little kingdom of Judah. And he also ventured militarily back into the old region of Israel. So that's when Zephaniah is living. Now, looking at the book, it seems that Zephaniah was probably writing from before the time that Josiah started his reforms to after the time. So in some parts of the book, Zephaniah is very pessimistic. In other parts of the book, is very optimistic. Zephaniah doesn't get a big look in either Jewish or Christian liturgy. In fact, in Jewish liturgy, Zephaniah is one of only 3 prophets who do not appear at all. So that's how well they like him. It's Zephahu. In Christian liturgy, as far as I can find, and it's actually quite difficult to find, Zephaniah only has some trivial readings during Advent. Now, you did some more research on lectionaries, didn't you?
Yeah, apparently there's as many lectionaries as there are flavors at Baskin Robbins. I don't know how that reference will carry, but there's a lectionary for every flavor of Christianity you want. Our old friends, the Copts and the Ethiopian Orthodox, they have a lot of Old Testament readings, less so among the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox. The Eastern Orthodox, in fact, they have a set of readings. The Old Testament readings are never in the actual divine liturgy, like their main Sunday Eucharist, there's never an Old Testament reading in those, but there are Psalms kind of folded in along the way, but there's never this actual, this is our reading time, and we're going to read read an Old Testament reading during certain Vesper services, or like outside of the main liturgical liturgy, the Mass on Sunday. There's some prescribed Old Testament readings, but others, individual bishops and priests can pick and choose if there's one that they think fits at that particular time with the pericope of the New Testament reading. I had actually read an Orthodox priest who said that should probably be tightened up in the future, that there should be more distinct Old Testament readings during Vesper services, or Orthros, or like hours, they call them. The Catholic Church has a little bit more of a structure, and it appears that the Anglicans in their New Revised Lectionary, I think that's what it was called, have certain readings that go for certain days. But again, it's nothing as during prime time. As Zephaniah, it certainly doesn't make the cut on any of those.
No, I mean, Zephaniah would be, if Zephaniah was on television, he'd be on after 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that's the perfect time for him.
Yeah. Just sort of before the tarot reading ladies come on, or whatever.
Or the blank screen comes on.
Yeah, or the blank screen. So, yeah. Now, in brief, Zephaniah describes Judah as an ungodly place. And more than pretty much any other prophet, he's heavily into emphasizing the destruction that divine judgment is going to bring. And why is God going to bring the hammer down on Judah? Oh, because they're worshipping other gods. Now, he must be writing this before Josiah's reforms. So it's before the real introduction of monotheism. So the Judeans are still worshipping probably a host of little Canaanite deities. In particular, the goddess Asherah is probably a likely candidate there. Now let's take a look at the very first chapter of Zephaniah. And Zephaniah is only 3 chapters long, thank goodness. So here's Zephaniah 1:1. The word of Yahweh that came to Zephaniah, son of etc., 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 during the reign of King Josiah, son of Ammon of Judah. I will sweep everything away from the face of the earth, declares Yahweh. Okay. I will sweep away man and beast. I will sweep away the birds of the sky and the fish of the sea. I will make the wicked stumble, and I will destroy mankind from the face of the earth, declares Yahweh. I will stretch out my arm against Judah and against all who dwell in Jerusalem, and I will wipe out from this place every vestige of Baal and the name of the priestlings along with the priests. Well, that's pretty full on. I mean, we're looking at a pretty much Noah-type flood here by the description of it, aren't we? He's just going, and he continues. The great day of Yahweh is approaching most swiftly. Now, I like the fact that he calls it great day when he's promising utter annihilation. So this guy's a little bit of a fanatic. And he's been at 9 so far, and he racks it up down to 11. That day shall be a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of calamity and desolation, a day of darkness and deep gloom, a day of horn blasts and alarms against the fortified towns and the lofty corner towers. And he continues. And actually, there's an interesting little part here. In Zephaniah 2:4, he says, Gaza shall be deserted.
A little shot at the Philistines.
Yeah, a little shot at the Philistines. I wonder if anyone's actually tried to introduce that into modern politics. And he goes on, gather together, gather, O nation without shame. So Zephaniah is a full-on ranter.
Yeah, that was my takeaway from Zephaniah, is that it wasn't particularly well written. It was a rant, couple of page rant, and it was done. Nothing particularly interesting. No, there was no maybe transcendental themes or like big picture themes in Zephaniah, where you could draw bigger themes out of some of the other books that we've read. Less so in these minor prophets because they're so short. But Zephaniah, there's nothing in there. It seems like it's just gripes that he has about what's going on at the current moment, and then he's done, and you're moving on to your next prophet.
Yes. I mean, this guy doesn't just hate Judah. He hates everybody. Chapter 2. Moab shall become like Sodom, and the Ammonites like Gomorrah, clumps of weed and patches of salt. Okay. Yeah. So he's got to be a ranting misanthrope.
Yeah, it's not even written in a particularly interesting way either.
No, it's not. And as you say, it doesn't sort of invoke themes of, I don't know, righteousness or
things are going to get better. Or...
Well, yeah, not until chapter 3. Now, chapter 3, which probably was written after Josiah's reforms, it says, this is, Zephaniah 3. In that day, you will no longer be ashamed for all the deeds by which you have defied me. For then I will remove the proud and exultant within you, and you will be haughty no more on my sacred mount. But I will leave within you a poor, humble folk, and they shall find refuge in the name of Yahweh. The remnant of Israel shall do no wrong, and speak no falsehood. So Zephaniah concludes in his 3rd chapter with, right, I'm going to destroy the entire planet, but it'll be fine. So at least he adds a little bit of hope at the end.
And now a word from our sponsors.
And this is why people think that the 3rd chapter wasn't written until after Josiah had cleansed out all the little Canaanite gods and demons and Asherahs from Judah.
And just to put Zephaniah into context, you could probably, if you were going to listen to this whole book, it would probably take you just from the corner shop to home and back. You know, the round trip, you'd still have a little time to listen to a song maybe. It's very short.
Yeah. And I think the voice of Zephaniah is like some of those more ranty, strident evangelical preachers. Well, actually, I'm looking at him maybe he's more like Alex Jones. You can just see him frothing and gnashing and waving and cursing everybody. And that's about all we got in Zephaniah.
Yeah, that's it for Zephaniah.
Yeah. So.
But next is Habakkuk. I think that's what's interesting. We didn't talk about this much, but we probably will talk about him. His name, I think that even makes him a little bit more interesting. He falls outside of the normal naming conventions that we're so accustomed to.
Yes. His name appears nowhere else in the Bible. It is of unknown origin, although apparently until recently it was believed that his name is Babylonian or Akkadian. Now, this theory is now contested, but I think that's only happened in the past 20 years. But I don't know what the alternative theory is. I mean, to me, it makes sense. If he's got a Babylonian name, maybe Habakkuk was actually Babylonian.
Yeah.
And he became a malcontent from his own people. So he's come to Judah to say bad things are about to happen. I mean, that's one idea, but there seem to be several others.
I looked at the 1917 New Advent Catholic Encyclopedia. That's available at, I believe it's newadvent.org.
Yeah.
It's a good source because that 1917-ish age, it was firmly rooted in a lot of the traditional things that the Catholic Church taught, but it was also starting to absorb in some of the newer things that were happening in the late 19th, early 20th century. So you kind of get an interesting snapshot. It wasn't quite as loaded with a lot of the baggage that later more hippie dippy-ish sandal wearing Jesuits would include in there, but
what did you say? Santa wearing Jesuits? Oh,
sandal wearing Jesuits.
Sandal wearing Jesuits. Right.
You know, where they would throw in anything as long as it was new. You know, they would have thrown into it. It's traditional, but they weren't afraid to put in some of the newer thoughts into this encyclopedia. And as far as I know, it has the official stamp. Each article has that official stamp that it's been approved by a bishop, or I think they call it like a Neil Oblast or something.
Yeah, there's two. There's the Imprimatur.
Yeah,
if that's how you pronounce it, and the Nihil Obstat
or something like
something like that.
It's like one of those words you read, but you've never said it in your life, until you're podcasting about it, and then then you make it up as you go.
Yeah, I mean, so that means basically that the church officially approves of it.
But so they had listed in their, because it seems like the Christians have a little bit more attachment to Habakkuk than some of these other minor prophets. Or even maybe he's probably in the top three of the minor prophets that they like. But one of the theories that at least the New Advent Encyclopedia threw out there was that he was the son of a Levite, a son of a Levite named Jesus, which Jesus is a pretty common name and at that time, so it's not like he was Jesus's son or anything like that. And a Sunamite woman, which the Sunamites were from a town of Shunem, which is really, from all appearances, a completely unremarkable town in the northern part of modern Israel. I always get them confused. Is Judah in the north or Israel in the north?
All right, Israel's in the north.
Yeah, so it would have been in Israel at that time. But so that was one story. Another story is that he was from the tribe of Simeon, but from a town in the area of the tribe of Judah, which I don't know if that means anything or if that would add anything to it. But the article also says that all of these possible biographical details, they came from an apocryphal book called The Lives of the Prophets, which was written way after Habakkuk's times. So, I mean, really take it or leave it of any of those things. It's obvious, though, that his name doesn't really follow the conventions that we're normally accustomed to. So there's something going on with that.
That's true. I mean, so many prophetic names, or even just Israelite names in general, theophoric names. They've got the name of God in them. Yeshayahu, for example. There's nothing pertaining to Israel's God in Habakkuk's name. It's just, and it's so ugly.
It really, but we can't move on with his story without saying that there is the modern connection to Habakkuk in World War II, which I don't think either of our podcasts would be talking about World War II very much. But so we might as well, maybe we could put this in the title to get more clicks and listens by mentioning World War II. But during World War II, there was a what was the guy's name was Pike?
Yeah, Pike. I
Pike.
think Geoffrey Pike.
He was a I am mad inventor might be being a little bit too kind to it. But this Geoffrey Pike fellow came up with the idea of taking an iceberg made out of a innovative material that he invented called pikecrete, which was ice frozen with sawdust in it to a certain percentage. And then he said, let's make an aircraft carrier out of this that was basically this aircraft carrier, from what I understand, would have been the size of the entire U.S. Navy fleet at that time.
Yeah, from what I understand too, it was something like 2 million tons.
Yeah,
and that's not a ship. That's a small island. And I think for comparison, actually, I think that's the size of, say, 20 aircraft carriers. I think a modern US aircraft carrier is about 100,000 tons. So that's like the entire carrier fleet of the United States
today.
Doubled.
Yeah.
In one single floating. That's a
popsicle.
That's a popsicle. And from what I understand, Geoffrey Pike was a particularly unpleasant man. He came up with all sorts of wacky ideas, but he was really quite repulsive to deal with from the biography that I read, because he thought he was right about absolutely everything.
There's a ton of interesting stories too about this pikecrete.
Oh yeah.
It would apparently, if you shoot, I'm not going to go and shoot ice blocks to find this out. Maybe maybe we should do that for YouTube and we'd get a lot of views for that. But apparently regular ice just shatters, but this pikecrete, whatever the doing and putting the sawdust into it, makes it so hard that bullets bounce off of it, which I don't believe somebody didn't test this, but so the story is, whether this is apocryphal or not, Geoffrey Pike gives a general or an admiral in the British Army a pistol. He shoots it. This bullet goes all over the place, and it either went through the pants of another general or it actually hit him in the leg. And there's also another story that they did this demonstration again
with the same result, obviously. Yeah. So it was amazing stuff. From what I gather, it works about the same way as modern fiberglass does. So modern fiberglass, from what I understand, is a fairly brittle resin, but it is full of very flexible glass fibers. And the fibers, like the sawdust in the ice, they stop cracks propagating.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Because cracks can propagate quite quickly in a brittle material. And once they start, they keep going, widening. But if you hit a little tiny fiber perpendicular to the crack, it just stops. So apparently that's the secret of its, non-success, because I don't think pikecrete was never used successfully.
Oh, so that's, I think nowadays in concrete, they mix in bits of fiberglass into it. So it's got to be the same principle, I would imagine, then. Or rebar or something. I don't know. I'm not a construction person.
No, I can believe that. If you introduce this weaker, flexible material, it can make the whole damn thing stronger. Huh.
But to tie this back to Habakkuk, I think you read somewhere that he had an idea of why he named him after Habakkuk.
Yes, it's named after, unfortunately, I didn't note down the reference. It's named after one of the earliest verses. I think it's something. Here's Habakkuk, chapter 1, verse 5. Look among the nations, observe well, and be utterly astounded. For a work is being wrought in your days, which you would not believe if it were told. So I think it comes from that. And, I mean, had the thing actually worked, this 2 million ton floating island, yes, it would have been something you would have to see to believe. So I think that's where it comes from.
And apparently Geoffrey Pike read constantly. So I'm sure he read Habakkuk Habakkuk. I have to just find a way to say his name and settle with it. Now let's get to the Habakkuk that we're actually talking about today.
Yeah.
We could talk about Jeffrey Pike all day, but...
Yes. Okay, now the situation is he's living maybe 20, 30 years after Zephaniah and after the death of King Josiah. It's the last decades of Judah. Babylon has crushed Assyria and taken over its empire. So Babylon is now a direct threat to Judah. Apparently, Habakkuk may be virtually a contemporary of Jeremiah, and Jeremiah at this time was running around saying, you're going to die, for perfectly reasonable reasons, because God hates you, and Babylon is the instrument of your destruction. Now, Jeremiah's message, oddly enough, wasn't taken that well. And Habakkuk, that guy, Habby has a similar message. Interestingly, there is found in the Dead Sea Scrolls an extremely long commentary on the prophet. So he was obviously regarded as interesting enough that someone, at least 2,000 years ago, decided to write a big commentary on him. Now, his place, in Christian liturgy and in the readings, as far as I can find, is virtually non-existent. I was able to only find one single reading. However, and it's a big however, his message does show up quite a lot in Christian thought, but we'll get to that later when we actually get into the text of the guy. In the Jewish liturgy, he appears in the readings for the Feast of Weeks, Shavuot, which commemorates the anniversary of the day that God gave the law to Moses. And he has a whacking great 2 readings on that day. So in neither religion is he that big, at least liturgically. Oh, actually, one interesting thing I managed to discover, because virtually nothing is said about Habby's life. When artists have decided to make a statue of the guy, they've got absolutely free rein. And the Renaissance sculptor Donatello created such a statue, which is called Blockhead, apparently. Lo Zacconi. Is that how you pronounce it in Italian?
Oh, that sounds as good as I'm going to go with it.
Okay.
That is a bizarre...
Don't you reckon that looks like Voldemort?
It sure does. And there's a lot of... Wow. That seems a lot more abstract than they would go for normally.
It does, doesn't it? And the body seems, I don't know, it's very thin, don't you think? Sort of like it's stretched out.
Yeah. That is much more... I was just looking at it initially in that there was a little thumbnail in the notes, but now looking at it, I wonder if he was supposed to have hair, and maybe this might deserve a little bit more research into it.
It could. Actually, when I was looking it up, one article which mentioned it said that the meaning of Lo Zacconi was bald. Now, in Italian. Now, I checked several sites, and Zacconi never ever means bald. So you can't trust anything on the internet, people, including us.
The Wikipedia, which does have a link to something else, says that it's known for its realism and naturalism, but that seems... I mean, my first look at it would definitely not go towards realism and naturalism. That's very interesting. I think he definitely, and it's in Florence Cathedral. Your knowledge of Habakkuk, people out there, your knowledge of him is increasing by leaps and bounds every moment.
Every moment. Okay, back to the book. Now, it's in, again, it's just 3 chapters, and it's in 2 parts. The first part is a dialogue between the prophet and God, And the second part is a psalm. Now, like almost all the other prophets, well, like most of the other prophets, there are no actual prophecies. Habakkuk is interrogating God and challenging him. And I think if we look at, here we go. Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 2. How long, O Lord, shall I cry out, and you not listen? Shall I shout to you violence, and you not save? Why do you make me see iniquity? Why do you look upon the wrong? Raiding and violence are before me. Strife continues and contention goes on. So in brief, he sees Babylon as a distinct threat, which is perfectly reasonable, and it's an imminent threat. And he asks God, well, why don't you do something about this, man? You didn't help the Israelites when Assyria took them. Now it looks like you're not going to help us here in Judah when Babylon attacks us. So he raises the central question of theodicy. Why does God let bad things happen? And
God's response is pretty much, look at how tough these Babylonians are.
Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 5. For lo, God says, I am raising up the Chaldeans, which is the common name in the Old Testament for the Babylonians, that fierce, impetuous nation who cross the earth's wide spaces to seize homes not their own. They are terrible, dreadful. They make their own laws and rules. I can't have that. Their horses are swifter than leopards, fleeter than wolves of the steppe. Their steeds gallop, their steeds come flying from afar. So God basically puts the fear of God himself into Habakkuk. He doesn't reply to Habakkuk's complaint. He just says, wow.
Have you seen these guys?
Yeah, have you seen these guys? Ooh, it's going to be great. Then Habakkuk launches into a second complaint. Okay. My holy God, you never die. O Lord, you have made them a standard of contention. O rock, you have made them a cause for complaint. You whose eyes are too pure to look upon evil, who cannot countenance wrongdoing. Why do you countenance treachery and stand by idle, while the one in the wrong devours the one in the right? So Habakkuk is, what's a nice word for terrified? He's terrified. Okay. I was going to use something which uses a swear word, but I won't.
He's quaking in his sandals at this point.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, quaking in his sandals. Okay, at this point, Habakkuk decides to stand watch. He says, I will stand on my watch, take up my station at the post, and wait to see what God will say to me, what he will reply to my complaint. Yahweh answered him and said, write the prophecy down, inscribe it clearly on tablets so that it shall be read easily. Okay. For there is yet a prophecy for a set term. Not quite sure what's going on there. A truthful witness for a time that will come, even if it tarries, wait for it still, for it will surely come without delay. So basically God seems to be saying, yeah, okay, here's your prophecy. It's going to be horrible. It'll all pick up in the end. And he goes on, see, the rash have no integrity, but the just one who is righteous because of faith shall live. And that's where it comes into Christian theology.
Yeah, and I think that's a message you can grab onto, that the bad guy's going to get it in the end and the good guy's going to get a reward in the end. That's something, at least. It's a little cliche, but it's some bigger message you can get out of than just a short 3-chapter gripe-a-thon in Zephaniah.
Yes. And in fact, that little passage there pops up fairly often in Paul's letters. For example, Romans chapter 1, For in it the righteousness of God is revealed through faith for faith, as it is written, the one who is righteous will live by faith. Or, for example, in Hebrews, which is attributed to Paul, but although the letter to the Hebrews doesn't actually claim to be by Paul, in Hebrews chapter 10, in a very little while, the one who is coming will come and will not delay. But my righteous one will live by faith. So that became a popular element in Pauline theology, where Paul is basically into no, you don't, it's not by works that you were saved, it's by having faith, just as Habakkuk said.
And now a word from our sponsors. I had also heard an interpretation. I'm thinking that this was an evangelical interpretation about empires, that these big things, these big entities are always going to fall. But as long as you keep your faith, et cetera, then you'll be okay.
Okay.
I mean, that's really the story of Job at the end, too.
Yeah.
You get run through the ringer, but hey, at the end, everything was pretty much okay. It didn't matter that his original family was killed, or that, I mean, everything comes out in the wash at the end.
Yeah. It ends up with a new family. So just put that behind you.
Just hang in there. And
yeah, just hang in there. It's always seemed to me a little bit of a cop-out, that attitude. I can see the attractiveness of it, but...
I mean, I think it depends on what direction you take it in. If you say that you don't have any agency in changing your circumstance, and I don't think God really says it one way or the other. Well, in Job, he says specifically that you don't have any agency because Job didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But I don't think in Habakkuk, God really addresses Habakkuk's agency at all in changing anything.
Yeah. He just...
Well, he tells him to write things down. Maybe that, I don't know. That's for theologians, a much higher pay rank than my podcasting pay rank.
Yeah. Now, the Prophets ends with a prayer, chapter 3. Given that this prayer doesn't appear in the commentary on Habakkuk found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, a lot of scholars think that this was tacked on sometime later. And it's a happy little prayer which basically says, okay, God, or it basically says, right, we're all going to be fine. So chapter 3, verse 2, O Lord, I have learned of your renown. I am awed, O Lord, by your deeds. Renew them in these years. Though angry, may you remember compassion. And he goes on and he says, yeah, okay, God, right, please make everything fine. And so ends the book of Habakkuk.
Yeah. Didn't it seem to you that prayer or psalm didn't quite fit in? I would have to go with that was a later tack on.
Yeah. No, it doesn't fit in. I mean, the first two bits are sort of a Job-like dialogue between Habakkuk and God, and they hold together very strongly. And then for him to break out in this sort of psalm, as it's called, or prayer at the very end, and for 1/3 of the book, mind you, it just seems someone thought, oh yeah, we need to have, we've had the preview screenings, we've gone to the focus groups, man, you need to have an upbeat ending. So here it is.
There was one thing, I don't remember where I read it, but that Habakkuk makes a appearance in the book of Daniel. Oh, okay, so this is from the New Revised Standard Version, Daniel chapter 14, verse 33. Now the prophet Habakkuk was in Judea. He was made a stew and had broken bread into a bowl, and it was going into the field to take it to the reapers. But the angel of the Lord said to Habakkuk, take the food that you have to Babylon to Daniel in the lion's den. Habakkuk said, Sir, probably in the in the King James Version, he would have said, Sire, Sire, I have never seen Babylon, and I know nothing about the den. Then the angel of the Lord took him by the crown of his head and carried him by the hair with the speed of the wind and set him down in Babylon right over the den. So if I'm not mistaken, this part, Habakkuk's doing his thing in Israel, Judah, and then he gets transplanted, you might say, to feeding Daniel, a major prophet, in the lion's den, which I think they lived at very different times, didn't they?
Well, Daniel, by definition, has to be after the Babylonian conquest. But the Babylonian conquest of Judah only lasted 50 years. It's a stretch. You could given that Habakkuk is clearly prophesying before the Babylonian conquest, at a stretch you could say when he was a very old man and the place had been taken by the Babylonians, that he then was taken in a very rude fashion.
Yeah.
To Daniel in the den. It's not wholly ridiculous.
Are there a lot of examples of crossovers like that?
No, it's actually, I don't remember reading that passage at all in Daniel. I must have just missed it. No, it's very, very, very rare. I think there's somewhere. The only other one I can think of is maybe, say, Jeremiah refers to a previous prophet by name. And that's about it.
But certainly nothing as dramatic as an angel dragging him several hundred miles or kilometers. It probably doesn't really matter, but he's dragging him halfway across the Fertile Crescent to serve Daniel in the lion's den. That's a pretty fun. The writers were having a lot of fun with that one.
Oh yeah, it's. I see it fits in well with the first half of Daniel, doesn't it? In its sort of folkloric status. So that certainly fits there. Yeah, Daniel's that sort of book. I mean, if there'd been a couple of prophets mentioned, I wouldn't be at all surprised.
That's maybe my other comment with to go back to Zephaniah for a minute. Now, Jeremiah is one of our major prophets. And so we had minor prophets working it. So there was a lot of prophets going around at that point.
There seemed to be. From what I know, yeah, there seemed to be. Why the major prophets ended up being major, I'm not sure. Although, given some of the minor prophets we've looked at, you can see why they ended up being minor.
And I think you always have to keep in your mind, we haven't mentioned it, most of these prophets aren't doing what we would typically consider as prophecy, as seeing into the future. It's really, these are people who have had a direct conversation with God. Yes.
I mean, the closest that 90% of them get to a prophecy is to say, whoa, we're all doomed, God's going to take us all. About as vague a prophecy as you could possibly get. There's no one saying that, well, in 432 years, this will happen. No one's saying that.
But so we've talked about Zephaniah, pretty short book, pretty boilerplate. Habakkuk, which I think is a little bit more interesting. I think of the minor prophets. So far, I think he ranks up there in at least the top third. We have a couple more minor prophets to go, and maybe it will supplement them a little bit with, who knows, a major prophet might sneak in there. You never know who will show up on our next collaboration between the History of the Papacy and the History in the Bible podcast.
So it's good night from me.
And we will see you soon.
Toodles all.
When the world is just too much, turn it off and turn on positive, encouraging K-Love.
I'm gonna praise.
World off. K-Love on.
K-Love is sunshine for my soul.
I love K-Love.
Listen now on your radio, online, or on the free K-Love app.
K-Love makes me feel so good.
Positive, encouraging K-Love.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by to answer your questions for free. Call now and find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-910-7500. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell everyone listening who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me here. It's always nice to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now. 800-910-7500. You'll find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now. 800-910-7500.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center may not be available in all states, not available in California.